First of all, warm welcome to everyone for joining our webinar, Enhance Your Creative Thinking. It's truly an honor for all of you for giving me the time and considering that this is something worth your attention. The first disclaimer I want to make over here is that what I've tried to do is make this session as rich as possible. And what I was not able to do is do a time check. So we're planning for a 1 hour session. I'll try to keep it within 1 hour, but if it is not, if it doesn't finish, we'll probably have to continue on in a separate session. So I wasn't able to do a time check. What I would like to start with is, even though you've already decided to give me your time and attention, but still, why should you be listening to me? I believe I owe everyone in the audience a small explanation for that. So first of all, I'm a creative strategist at heart. That's what I've been trained to do. But I've also had a very eventful professional life. I am not a guru. I'm no expert. I'm no creativity ninja, nothing of that sort. I've been part of 2 startup successes where they weren't my startups, they were other people's companies, and they became huge organizations. So that was a very pleasant experience for me. I've had the opportunity of heading offices for some of the world's largest advertising networks. I've started 4 companies on my own that were successes, and I have failed with flying colors in 2 startups also. So all of that put together gives me some credentials of being able to talk about a topic as difficult as creativity. These are the clients. It's not a complete list, to be honest, and I am not being modest over here at all. These are the brands that I've had the chance of working with quite extensively over the years. So as I said, I've had a very eventful journey. I've been very blessed in that sense. Approximately, and this is a conservative figure, $100 million at least have been spent by different clients and brands on ideas that I've created. So if I'm still alive and breathing, that goes to show that not all of them were wasted. Besides that, I've been part of 9 Guinness World Records, won some FA awards. I was chosen as the Global Top 20 at DDB. And recently, I had the honor of being among the top 20 entrepreneurs in GCC also for a book. But none of these are the most important reasons why you should be listening to me. The most important reason why you should be listening to me is that I've been very blessed to have had the opportunity of working with some amazing people. And it's such a long list, I can't put them in a few slides. I'll need a few hours just to talk about those amazing people. These include global learning heads of multinational organizations. These include CEOs. These include creative gurus and experts and actual creative ninjas, and a lot of other people from a lot of different walks. So I believe that sort of makes me, it puts me in a position where I can add some value to people who are looking for some coaching in creativity. Now, who is the session today for? The session today is for believers, specifically those who innately believe by nature, by their very personality, they believe that the human spirit can create real change. It is not for those who are by nature ultra realists. There's no right wrong here. I'm just trying to help you see and get more value out of the session. There are people in the world who believe that fundamentally things are what they are and they can't really be changed, and we can only sort of react or be very tactful about things and manage things. So if you are one of those, you will probably not be very excited going through this webinar, but if you're from the first group, I think you'll be very excited. Now, one more disclaimer here, which is everything that I get a chance to talk about and where people are kind enough to give me to lend me an ear to listen. Creativity is one of the trickiest, one of the most difficult to talk about. And one of the reasons for that is that it's fundamentally, you talk about intangibles. Fundamentally, you talk about things that are going through people's minds and their heads. So it's not easy. And you as an audience have to be very forgiving of me and will have to sort of balance it out in terms of keeping your attention focused and your minds open. Before we actually get to the meat of the session, some context I believe is important to be said. And by that I mean, let's address the virtual elephant in the virtual room, the COVID-19 scenario. I will very quickly touch base on it and move on in terms of what is my opinion on this and how I've sort of scheduled or ordered this session accordingly. Now, I've had the opportunity of speaking to some really well-informed people. This includes some PhDs who are especially top experts in these sort of areas, calamities and the impact that they have on societies and habits and so on and so forth. I've also had the opportunity of speaking to some C-level executives in some organizations. One of the things that is key, and history has proven this, and I am a firm believer of that, is that things will stay the same faster. What I mean by that is very rarely does it happen that fundamentals of human behavior change. What does happen with these sort of things, where these are watershed moments, you can call them, and something that impacts everyone from the President of the United States to someone like me sitting over here at my home, or someone like you trying to do what you're doing. What happens is that the change that we were already on, the path of change that we were already on, is not going to change. It's only going to get faster. So you can go back a year, 2 years, look at all the predictions, and whatever was being predicted that will happen in the world in the next 5-10 years, that will probably happen in the next 1 or 2 years. Rarely anything new will happen. There might be some small areas, some small silos where radically new things happen, but by and large it won't. The direction won't change, only the speed will change. Let me give you an example. So this is something we've all been talking about for the last 10, 15, 20 years, right? That there's a shift coming in values across. So there was the last generation, then there were millennials, now there's a new generation, and so on and so forth. And if you take a moment to go through all of these, you will most probably agree that yes, this change has been coming. And the COVID-19 scenario will probably have a more profound impact in the same direction, where instead of institutions and state, people are more individual achievement and individual presence oriented. Convention is being challenged at every stage. Creativity is taking its place. Adulthood has been taken over by youthfulness. So you find people who are youthful in their 50s and 60s to be more inspiring to people at large than people who tend to appear more mature. So class, order, hierarchy is changing into meritocracy. The gender conflict is at least aimed right now towards opportunities or gender fusion and harmony and stuff like that. Now, it won't surprise you, or it might, when I tell you that I've taken this particular slide from a study from the year 2003. Imagine. 2003. That's probably what, 17 years old? This is 4 years before the iPhone existed. This is way before all of us had broadband internet the way we have today. So if things haven't really changed in the last, and a lot has happened in the last 17 years. So this sort of goes to make the point that I was trying to make earlier, which is things will stay faster, stay the same faster. So if I was to boil it down and give it some context to the webinar that we're having today, the conversation we're having today, is that success will be determined by your return on ideas. How well you are going to create value, how well you are going to create difference. So moving on now, going towards the meat of the webinar. Now, when I started thinking that, okay, how can I sort of get the best out of this initiative and people who are going to be spending some time with me and giving me their valuable attention, how can I get the most out of it? So my objective today is And the reason you need to understand this is so that you can be in the right receptive frame of mind to get the most value out of the time you're giving me. So the way I'm going to take this is I'm not going to get into the fundamentals of creative thinking. I believe that's you guys are already practicing it a lot in your lives and making achievements. So my mindset is going to be to coach high performers. So this is how I'm going to be talking about it. You're high performers, and I am going to take this opportunity to coach you a little bit and see if I can help you improve your performance in any way. And how I intend to do that is to give you food for reflection. Reflection, I believe, is the most fundamental thing in being able to do something creative. So I'm going to give you some food for that. 7 foods to be exact. Now, it might be bad English, but the 7 points are sort of the juice of almost 2 decades of my life. So I believe it'll be some good points. The second thing I am going to try to do is this. I'm going to try to engage you. Now, this is very challenging in a virtual scenario. And those of you who know me and have worked with me, I see a few names here who have worked with me in the past, know that I am a very animated, engaged kind of a speaker. And speaking to people like this is almost torturous for me. But still, I think I've found a nice way of keeping everyone engaged. That engagement I'm talking about is going to be something unique. Okay. Now, what I want you to do while you go through this entire webinar is imagine right now that you have been given a creative challenge. It could be from a client, it could be from the school where your kid goes, or anyone. Okay, anyone that matters. So you've been given a creative challenge, and this is really important. And I want you to keep this in mind throughout the webinar, and everything that we talk about, I want you to try to run through your mind how you would apply it to this particular challenge. And the challenge is you have to design a better chair. As mundane as it might sound, as cluttered as the marketplace for new chairs might look, your challenge is design a better chair. Now keep this challenge in mind and keep trying to apply whatever you hear me talking about to this while we are going through the webinar. Design a better chair, don't forget. So if everyone's ready, let's go. First food for reflection. Creativity is knowledge plus imagination. Now there are an infinite number of definitions of creativity, and most of them are very, very good. I'm not trying to define creativity here, I'm trying to make a point. And the point is that knowledge is key. And this is probably the most overlooked aspect of creative solution creation from my experience, that we tend to overlook the importance of this. But the $1 million question, before that, just a quick example. If you look at anyone who's engaged in a creative process as a professional career or by nature, it's no surprise, it's no coincidence that they also know a lot of it by heart. They know who the greats are within their circle. So poets are generally, known to be the laziest of the creative lot. So that's why I've taken that example. But any good poet you talk to, you'll be surprised at the amount of poetry they know by heart. So whether it's Einstein, whether you're a physicist, whether you're a chemist, or whether you are a strategist, or the more you know about that specific problem, the more important it is. It sounds like a no-brainer, it's almost a cliche, but it's also the most overlooked in my opinion. But the big question is how much to know. Okay, this is where I believe I can give you some interesting pro tips. Know enough to synthesize. Don't try to know enough to analyze. Right? The mind is a wonderful thing, and it can process information in wonderful ways. And we'll come to that a little bit more towards the middle of the session. But right now, what I mean by analyze and synthesize is that analysis generally is the breaking down of an intellectual whole into components. It's a wonderful process. It's amazing. It's very useful. But when you specifically out on a creative task, there's a mission. What I found is, and I've learned this from, again, some amazing people, some wonderful people who've taught me a lot, that synthesis is more important than analysis. What is synthesis? Synthesis is almost the exact opposite. It's like combining separate elements that you're gathering from different pieces of information to create a coherent whole in your mind. So why is this important? Why is synthesis more important than analysis? Synthesis lets you create an informed point of view, not an informed opinion. There's a difference. Opinions, we are married to. Opinions we hold, we associate with them. A point of view is a choice. So you are choosing to look at something from a particular perspective, a particular point of view. So that's why synthesis is more important. So if you are on a creative journey, try to gather as much information as you can, but how much do you hold? Where do you stop? You stop where you either create a point of view or a bunch of point of views so that now you can embark on that creative journey. So this is that particular pro tip. That is food number 1. Coming to food number 2. Ideas are not the most important things. So if you feel like you just got splashed in the face, don't worry. I know what I'm talking about. What I mean here is understanding the perspective of ideas is very important. Ideas are very, very important. How important? It's good to have some perspective there. Okay, let me share a quick research with you. Idea Lab is a company that has founded over 100 companies. It's like a startup platform. It's founded over 100 companies in the last 20 years. And these are the companies they've founded. Now you can see some really amazing big names here also. Now they did a research where they took 100 companies that they founded and 100 companies that they did not found. And they tried to do an analysis to find that one common factor, or let's say the most important factors that determines the success of a company. And lo and behold, what they found was something very, very unexpected. Almost half, it's 42%, it's not almost half, but I'm taking some creative license, no pun intended. I just saw that there is a question on the chat. For question and answer, you can actually use a separate feature that is there. It's called a Q&A. It helps me see the questions and keep track of them better. The question is, by creative here, are you referring to design, graphic, advertising, etc., or creative as in creative thinking? To answer Rami's question, I'm talking about everything. So I don't think designing, graphic, advertising is different from creative thinking. The fundamentals are the same. So whatever context you are bringing to the table yourself, whatever tools and expertise you carry, these fundamentals will help you there. So you cannot do creative design without creative thinking, can you? Right? So coming back to the success factors. So the most important success factor is timing. And I've been thinking about this a lot. I told you that I failed 2 startups, right? And I've succeeded with 4. And this made me feel a little bit good and bad both. I felt good because, okay, I now have a good excuse for where I failed. But also this sort of shows that the ones where I succeeded, it wasn't really me. It was the timing was correct. And this is very important from a creative thinking perspective also. Whatever creative task you are embarking on, now you understand why knowledge is more important. It's so important. You need to understand the context. You need to understand the timing. And timing is a nice way of saying a lot of things. Timing means culture, society, situation, how open your whatever area you are in. If you're designing a new chair, for example, if you take the same challenge, you think timing has anything to do with it? I would suggest right now people are more conscious about the chairs they are sitting on than they have ever been before, because they are working from home, they are sitting in front of the computers more often than not. Suddenly everyone is talking about staying alive longer. That has research is showing that people are becoming more health conscious, surprisingly. So would timing be in your favor to design a better chair or not? That's a question we need to ask ourselves. The second most important thing is team and execution. And the third thing is idea. But don't be discouraged, because if you look at it again, look that ideas are more important than the business model itself and money itself. How much money you have, funding, whether you are able to raise uh, 1 or 2 or 3 rounds of millions of dollars of funding for your business or for your initiative or whatever you're doing. Whether your client is paying you enough for the design that you are about to make is almost irrelevant. It's like 14%. The business model is almost irrelevant compared to the idea. So it's good to know that where is it that the idea matters. Just to give you very quick examples. Nokia launched a gaming phone back in November 2002. This is pre-iPhone times. I don't know how many of you remember this. I remember this one. Engage, it used to be called. And on the right of the screen, you can see MKBHD, who's, I think, the most influential or one of the top 3 most influential tech reviewers in the world right now. He is holding in his hand something called a Nubia Red. I think I'm naming it correctly. This is a review from this month. And according to him, gaming phones are here to stay. So, yeah. Another example here is the Lazy Boy. The company Lazy Boy was started in 1927, but it really took off in this century. So that tells us something about timing. There are tons of other examples also. So Airbnb, a lot of other organizations tried doing something similar but failed drastically. Airbnb is where they are today. They might be going through a very, very bad situation because of COVID. You know, home entertainment systems have been around for very, very long, but now there's hardly a home you can find without one. Streaming services, you know, everyone's heard the Netflix story. So there are tons more examples once you start looking at it. So it's probably not a coincidence. It's almost intuitive that an idea whose time has come, you know, has to happen. Food number 3. It's almost contradictory to food number 2, but that's what the creative process is about. Creativity, I don't believe, is optional. And there's this amazing example that a gentleman named Rory Sutherland, who's a bigwig in the Ogilvy network. If you are from the advertising background, you will probably already have heard of him. So I was listening to a TED talk from him, and he gave us this example, and it was brilliant. This is an actual, this actually happened. Okay, I don't remember the year, but this was probably 20 years ago or something. So the Eurostar apparently goes from the title of food to, I will share this, I just got a question. I will share this presentation with you guys. So you can relax. Just don't sue me for any of the images that I might have mistakenly used against copyright laws. So keep these presentations to yourself. Okay. So the Eurostar train apparently goes between Paris and London. I might get a few details wrong here and there, but don't worry about it. That's not what matters. What matters is the crux of the situation. So what used to happen here was that one side of the track of the train was laid by the French and one was laid by the British. The one that was laid by the French was faster. So the same train would take 25 minutes less coming to UK, and the same train would take 25 minutes more going to Paris. Now this became a big problem for the Britishers. So they spent $10 billion, that's with a B, making the track faster to save 25 minutes. Now these are 25 minutes that you will probably waste anyways stuck in the Parisian traffic, but nonetheless. Now the question was, and this is how Rory Sutherland helped us understand how creativity is not optional. Now imagine if I had $10 billion, but instead of an engineering budget and trying to make the track faster, We were supposed to come up with a creative solution to make those 25 minutes that people are, that extra 25 minutes that people are spending on that train more valuable. Okay. So some of the examples that came up from people were amazing. One of them was that, why don't you put free, extra high speed internet in the train, and you can save about 99% of that money and people will still be happy. Another one that was very, very interesting was that you hire male and female supermodels to serve free beverages to everyone on the train and save about $9 billion, and people will actually ask for the train to be further slowed down. So if you think that creativity is optional, now you know it can cost upwards of $10 billion. Another very similar example, and I'm sure all of you have seen this and have experienced this and even decoded it, is the reason there are so many mirrors around elevators. People complain about elevators being slow. You put mirrors there, people get distracted by looking at themselves and they stop complaining. So the problem identification is different. They rephrase the problem and hence come up with a very different creative solution. You know, sadly, there is no price to be paid if someone is not being creative. And so the people, the engineers who spent those $10 billion making the train faster, I don't think they were held accountable for spending, you know, up to 90%, 99% extra money they could have spent somewhere else. But I would like to make a very, and this is probably the most profound argument I've found, why creativity, I think, is not optional. We're all human beings, and we live a very finite life, and every resource that you have is finite. So scarcity of resources, I think, is the biggest argument, the most profound argument to be made of why we need to be creative in every aspect of life, not just work, not just professional life. The way you set up your house, the way you spend time with your kids, the way you think about pretty much everything, because every resource is, at the end of the day, limited. There's only one resource that is virtually unlimited. There is definitely a limit to that also, but you cannot reach that limit within your lifetime. Let me put it like this. And that resource is ideas, is creative thinking. So if you're religious minded like me, of all the traits that God has shared with us, his traits he shared with us, I think this is the most profound. The ability to create, to think beyond what is obvious. William Gibson is a famous science fiction writer. He, I think, put it in a very nice way. The future is already here. It's unevenly distributed. The reason it's unevenly distributed is because of the people who show the vigor of going after it. Food for. Creativity weighs 3 pounds. I think you know where I'm going with this. 3 pounds is the average weight of a human brain. Now, mindset, I believe, is everything. Like you can, if there's one food you want to take away from this and leave everything else, it's this one. Mindset. But this you probably already know. Right? So the value I'm trying to create for you here, what I will attempt to do, and I might be completely wrong, so take it with a pinch of salt, because this is completely based on my experience. What I will try to do is help you find a place, find a mindset which is, let's say, easier to be in for creative thinking. So I'll try to sort of demystify it. So what is the opposite of a creative mindset? It's not a rational mindset, right? What I have found after having been challenged to do creative thinking almost every day for the last 2 decades is that the opposite of a creative mindset is a fearful mindset. And it could be fear of anything. Now, sort of put perspective to what I'm trying to say. Okay, and when I say fear, I believe it can be misleading, but to put it in perspective, to put the right meaning to the word fear, I want to give you this example. Some scientists, they actually put brain scanners on jazz music players. So for those of you like me who are not into music, jazz is something remarkable. When I started reading about it, I was blown away. Basically, jazz music players are improvising as they are playing, and they are not supposed to play cyclical melodies the way most music is made. So most music, the way it's made is they make a small piece of it and then they repeat it, and that forms the whole song or whatever you might call it. Jazz is unlike anything else. So imagine that you are a master player of one of the musical instruments and you're supposed to improvise on the go, but you're not supposed to repeat it. You can't just improvise and do something nice for 2 minutes and just keep repeating it. And so this is probably one of the trickiest creative challenges that you can be faced with. And when scientists put brain scanners on some of the top jazz music players in the world, what they found out was that these people are great at jazz because they have this uncanny ability of switching off that part of their brain which is responsible for self-censoring and inhibition. So I think a better word for fear would have been inhibition, but I think it narrows it too much. But I believe that sort of gives you some idea of what I'm trying to talk about. So I just got a comment in the question, so thank you so much. My taste in music is, I wish it was brilliant, but yeah, I'll take any compliment I can get. So yeah, before getting distracted, what I was saying was that fear and inhibition is sort of the opposite of the mindset that you are looking at. You know, why does that happen? One of the reasons is that our brains are wired to keep us safe. So it's like a natural response. A scenario where you're supposed to be creative is a challenging scenario. And if it's a challenge, this means your brain gets into this defensive mode. And the sad thing is that education makes it worse. For example, doctors and engineers, I was reading a research somewhere, and it actually reached the same conclusion that I had, which is doctors and engineers, most respected professions, most well-trained people in the world, are trained to jump to the only right answer. So these are two things very counterintuitive to creative thinking. One, take leaps quickly, and two, have this mindset there is one right answer. So if you're making a bridge or you're treating a patient who just came into the ER, this is brilliant. This is exactly what you need. But if you're doing creative thinking, this is not the mindset you need. And education sort of puts us in this situation. And don't be surprised when I tell you that even art education I have seen like that. My sister is an artist, she's a qualified artist, she's a sculptress. Actually, a first cousin also is a sculptress, and I've been surrounded by some amazing, talented people. But even there, what they are trained to do is not just think creatively, they're also trained to do, redo until they sort of come to that one thing that they believe is the right way to do this. So, that sort of, okay, now there's a question from Hashim. It says, is being afraid of working on a new big project, does it count as fear, especially if it's a big client? Of course it does. Of course it does. That's exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about. Anything that holds you back. Anything that holds you back. So how do you obtain fearlessness? So I've been talking about it. I started by saying I'll tell you what mindset to be in, and I have so far, all I've done is told you what mindset not to be in. So let me start talking about the mindset you are supposed to be in. Okay? So how you get into that fearlessness mindset? There are tons of techniques out there. There are tons of books out there, and most of them that I've read are amazing. Okay, so I'm not saying this is the only way. I'm saying this is my way, and I found, I think it's a nice hack. It's a nice pro tip to get there easier. Okay. Now, the way I like to think about it is, whenever you're faced with a creative challenge, imagine that you are going on a journey of discovery. Both these things are important. One, imagine that you're going on a journey. Two, imagine that it's a journey of discovery, not invention. Okay? Imagine an endless universe with solutions that already exist and are waiting to be discovered. And there is some science behind this. What this does, this way of thinking, that you think about it as a journey, you think about it as a discovery process where you don't think you have to come up with something. You don't believe there is something that has to come out of you. You believe that the universe is vast, it's infinite, and the solutions are already there. It's like fun, looking for a treasure. So you have no doubt, you believe that the treasure is there. You are just going to go and discover it. This is a very practical solution to the most common cognitive biases we fall prey to. So the fear mindset, I believe it comes because of a lot of cognitive biases that already exist, and it's very easy being a human to fall prey to them. So some of them that are the most powerful and keep us from being creative the most, I believe this particular technique that I'm talking about helps us beat them in a very practical way. So first of all, what it does is it brings humility. And all of you, I believe, will agree with me that no one likes an arrogant, creative guy, right? Because people tend to believe that he is overstating his importance. And that's very human, that's very true. And the moment you feel that a challenge is bigger than you, that humility actually helps you to sort of continue to answer Hashim's question. If you are afraid that there's a big challenge, there's a big project, you are right. It is big. It is a big client. It is a big project. So that humility is actually important. The second thing it does is it gets you out of that scarcity mindset that we are so prone to. Ideas truly infinite. Also, I believe one more thing it does, and this one is counterintuitive. What I've seen happen is, and what almost with every creative strategist I've had the opportunity of training has agreed with this, that this particular technique helps you actually keep your feet on the ground. I know it sounds counterintuitive that you're talking about an endless universe, you're thinking about a treasure, and you're trying to put yourself in a mindset where you're on a journey. Somehow, I don't know what the science is behind it. It actually makes you stretch, so to speak. So your feet are on the ground, but your mind is beyond. And then it helps you stay unstuck or get unstuck, because you don't jump to and then hang on or latch on to the first good thought you have. So because you believe it's journey. Now, there are so many cognitive biases out there. And recently I read a very nice summary. Here's a link of the 50 cognitive biases. I don't want to go through all of them. But the point I'm trying to make here is that when I was going through this research also, and when I've gone through my life as I've gone through it, I found this particular technique to be particularly effective and a nice practical solution or a hack to sort of beat those cognitive biases. Now, to help you remember this and help you visualize this and get into a good mindset easily, here's a small tip. Okay, so don't try to solve problems. Okay, you're not Sherlock, mindset wise, and do not try to create. You're not an artist. Right? Creativity is not the product that we're aiming for. But if you are an artist, then it's okay. But generally, even in a business domain, what you tend to do as an artist also is to create because there is some other outcome you are looking for. So it could be influencing behavior, it could be part of an advertising campaign, it could be packaging, it could be launching a new product, it could be anything. But the point is, you're not creating for the sake of creativity. That's what artists do, expression. Okay, and I'm not an artist, and I don't think I can ever be one, and I don't think I can talk to anyone, teach an artist, right? But for business sake, this is a mindset not to be in. So don't be Sherlock. That's one end of the spectrum. Do not be an artist. This is the other end of the spectrum. I would rather suggest that you try to be this. Okay? So it's a discoverer, but a discoverer of the new age, an infinite Even if you do a little bit of reading, and I'm sure all of you have probably come across this on social media somewhere, the size of the universe is so expansive. Every time you think about it expands your mind. Every time you think about it, it doesn't fail to surprise you. It doesn't fail to astonish you. That's why I think this analogy works so well, right? The vastness of the oceans and the vastness. Other analogies I don't think work as well as this one because it's just so darn big. So that's another tip for you to understand, or let's say remember, how to get into this mindset. So whenever you want to face the creative challenge, become a discoverer. Food number 5. Is there a method to this madness, to creative thinking? Yes-ish. Right. So I'll tell you what I mean. Most of us, when I say creative person, what you think is probably someone crazy with, an innate ability to be irreverent, to stand against the tide, to challenge everyone and be crazy. And yeah. Okay, so the reality is a little bit different. You see this guy, okay, David Kelly. This guy is the founder of IDEO, known to be the most creative company in the world. He was Steve Jobs' creative consultant. Imagine. So if those of you who think Steve Jobs was very creative, this guy is the guy who Steve Jobs hired when he wanted creative coaching. And I don't think he looks anything like that. And there's a reason for it. The reason is they've figured out the process, or at least let's say one process that works almost every time. So what I'm going to do is try to take you through that. The most important thing when you are going on a creative task is brainstorming. Even if you're doing a design task. Now, it depends on how complicated the task is, obviously. If you're just supposed to design one small poster, you probably don't need to do brainstorm. You have the skill to jump through it. But we're talking about situations where it actually matters, situations where it's important enough for you to spend the time and the effort. So the thing you need to do is brainstorm, but do it right. And to do it right, I am apologizing right now. I'm already taking you guys through a list of 7 foods, but within that, there's another list coming now. But I'll go through this one faster. Okay, so we're entering the last 16 minutes of the session. So I'll speed up anyways. If there is something that anyone doesn't understand or I am confusing you, feel free to put the question in the question answer box. So the first tip, first rule of brainstorming, you cannot brainstorm without a partner. Right? Even if it's an office T-boy, get that T-boy. Have that humility, have the faith that 2 brains are better than 1. And once you bounce off ideas with another mind, it will be a better scenario than try and do it alone. 2, build on thoughts. It's the most important rule. Do not use the word no. Do not challenge anyone's ideas. Do not shoot down thoughts. Keep it going. The key thing is keep building. Now, I cannot count the number of brainstorming sessions that I have been part of where nice people get into almost ego wars. And they're not being mean, they're just being human. They tend to create, evaluate. It doesn't work that way. It never works that way. This is how it works. As simple as the diagram looks, this is how it works. You jump from one thought to another until you discover an idea. This is the spirit of the right brainstorm. And whenever we've done this, we have cracked some of the most amazing new business ideas, new campaign ideas, new product ideas, new answers to different challenges. I was working for a Danish brand when the entire Danish cartoon against the Prophet situation rose up in Saudi Arabia and the entire Islamic world. We cracked them in literally minutes, and that feeling of synergy comes in because you're not trying to evaluate or you're not trying to win. What you're trying to do is build. So a nice analogy for that is, imagine if you're making a card stack, a card castle. Okay, what do? You don't try to force or fit one of them. You don't try to find which card goes where best. You keep building on it. It falls apart, but you don't lose heart because I'm still holding all the cards. So that's the mindset. Every new thought that comes in a brainstorm, adds value. Even if it's completely off, adds value. Third rule. This is so brilliant. I wish I had come up with this, but I did not. Okay. Use your right brain and left brain the way you use your right foot and left foot. Okay. We do not walk in a series of hops. We do not walk in turns where it's the right foot's turn, it's the left foot's turn. Right? The way scientists have been able to define the best definition for walking, human walking, is organized falling. Imagine, right? So basically every foot leaps on the other, builds on the momentum that the other has created. This is exactly how we're supposed to use our right brain and left brain. D, be curious. Knowledge is key. We've discussed this, so I won't go into a lot of detail, but do the work. Be curious enough to not create an opinion and try to create a point of view. Question everything that you can, because curiosity plus your opinions is synthesis, where you then tend to create a point of view. Be imaginative during the brainstorm session. Now, imagination, how to be imaginative is very, very difficult to decode. And some of the best minds in the world are trying to do this. So I cannot even pretend that I've figured it out. But again, there is a hack for this. Okay. And this is what I found. I don't know what the science behind this is. I don't know how it works. I don't know what happens to your brain or your mind. But I know this. If you get excited in a brainstorming process, the energy that you generate is contagious. Everyone gets excited. And somehow, when you are excited, your ability to come up with ideas becomes almost superhuman. And I'm not talking about excitement like you're happy excited or you are, pleasantly excited. I'm saying you just won the lottery excited. That's how amped up you need to get yourself. Try it and you will swear by it, the way I am. That the pace at which you are able to explore your own mind, your own thoughts, is superhuman. F, interplay. So this is another form of imagination. So the way we define interplay is connect the unconnected. Okay, this is Henry Ford. I think all of us should think like this. We don't invent anything. All we do is connect two seemingly unconnected thoughts and we have a new idea. And this, I don't think, has ever been more true than it is today because of the way the world is connected because of technology. So be like Henry. There was a phrase that was used in PNG. I don't know if they still use it or not. It was called search and reapply. So don't have the humility that there are amazing people out there who have done the thinking, who have walked these paths. All I need to do is just walk them again. Instead of reinventing, take it, combine it, and make something even better. So the invented myth, get out of that. Okay, I just got a question. It's more of a comment. I think it says, I think ideas or creativity doesn't have to be complex or out of the box every time. Sometimes ideas are right in front of us, very simple yet creative. Talking about fear, I think it comes because of the expectations of superiors or clients. Out of the box, something that has never happened, phrases like these, I think, halts the creative process or creates fears. What is your take on this? Okay, I will like to answer this question towards the end of the webinar. I think there are a few points that I need to make which answer this question better. This is Noam Chomsky. I'm sure all of you know about him. If you don't, you need to do it right away. Forget whatever you've done. Go Google this guy. Probably the smartest guy alive right now. Biggest asset we have in terms of intellect. So this is not an exact quote that from him, but he said something to this effect when I was listening to one of his interviews. He said, Apple did not invent most of the technology that makes the iPhone. Just put it together. So that's what brilliance or great ideas usually entail. Forget execution. We're still talking about the brainstorm phase. Okay. Forget execution. I know the tendency to come up with ideas that are doable, design products that are sellable or manufacturable, or design campaigns that are realistic, ideas that are possible. these are tendencies and temptations that all of us fall prey to. At the brainstorm level, do not do that. Assume there is someone or some technology that can do whatever you can think of. So if you are smart enough to think of something, there is someone smart enough to be able to do it. This is the assumption you need to work on. The reason I say that is, it shouldn't entail your creative thinking process. It shouldn't stop or inhibit your creative thinking process. Because once you're done with your ideas, once you're done with your thinking, you will have plenty of time to shoot some of them down. You will have plenty of time to then evaluate and see how we can reevaluate them, how we can change them, or maybe the timing is not right for some of these ideas. That time will come later. Brainstorming stage is not the stage to be talking about these things. Coming to food number 6, the second last one, I call it the happiness test. Okay, what I mean by that is, most success today lies between your ability to tell, lies in the ability that you have to tell a good idea from a great idea. How do you do that? There are tons of ways to do that again. One way that I tend to look at it is, ask yourself this: will it make whoever your target audience is, whether it's a product, whether it's a company, whatever you're making, will it make X happy, whoever that audience is? And remember, will it make them happy, not you? You're not the target audience. Even if you are, isolate yourself from the process. Science has shown repeatedly that our intuitions about how we will react and how people will react in the future to different stimulus is horrible. We are horrible at predicting our own behaviors. So if you generally tend to do that, stop doing that. Knowledge is important. Google is your friend. Try looking for similar scenarios. Do not assume that if you would do this against a certain stimulus, others will also do this. Because now you're piling up assumptions on top of assumptions, which is a really dangerous thing to do. Why is this happiness test there? Why is this such a big learning when I'm trying to sum up my life's learnings for you guys? The reason I do that is, this test you don't have to apply at the end. You can apply it throughout the process. So if you guys were doing what I asked you to do in the beginning of the session, which was the chair example, to make a better chair. This is a very critical question you should have been asking yourself in one way or the other, which is this worthwhile? Will it matter? And if the answer to this is no, then how you will know this, whether it will matter or not? Will it make someone happy or not? And happiness is a very nice way to sum up the core value that we're looking for in life. So if it will matter, then you should be spending time on it. Otherwise, the entire creative process is pointless. You can be a master at creativity, and if you're applying it to the wrong purpose, it's almost pointless, because the entire process pivots at the fact that on one hand there is you, a human being with a human spirit, and the other end of the process is going to be value that will be created. So either if this is wrong or this is wrong, it's a useless process. It's a tool that we're trying to learn, and if the tool is not applied correctly, nothing's going to come out. So moving forward quicker, food number 7, the most common pitfalls. So I've spoken about cognitive behaviors or weaknesses that cause trouble in this process. But there are few of them that I think deserve a higher position. The first one is, whenever there's a creative process happening, one of the biggest pitfalls we fall prey to is not invented here. They actually have a name for it. That's how common it is. I didn't come up with this name. What is it? It simply means it is human to not be associated with a comment or a thought or an idea that someone else seems to have invented. It's human. So this is a watch out. You need to watch out for this. It's so common in the creative circle that they have a name for it. So no one is above this. Second, falling in love with 1, 2, or 3 of the ideas. Either the first one you came up with or the last one you came up with or whatever. It's a bad idea. We do it very, very often. And the third thing we do is we tend to focus on the man behind the plan more than the plan. So if you're working with someone and it's an office tea boy, so to speak, and he comes up with something that you were not able to come up with, chances are you will not pay as much attention to it as you should because of the man behind the plan. So these three, in my opinion, are the most common pitfalls that most creative processes get hampered by. So interestingly, we've finished almost in time. In the end, whatever thinking you've done so far, or whatever thinking that you intend to do to make a better chair, I would suggest that you email your ideas or sketches with the pen and paper or whatever you've made to me. And if you want to continue discussion on it, I'll be more than happy. And I won't be surprised if one of you comes up with the next big thing. So this brings us to the end of the webinar. Now let's get into the question and answer. Raise your hand if you want to speak. If you want to post it, you can post the question in the question and answer section. I will start by answering Waleed's question, which was, sometimes ideas are right in front of us. They're very simple. And phrases like out of the box and stuff like that. So, Waleed, if I've understood your question correctly, what you are coming to is the entire creativity circle is marked by run-of-the-mill, cliched, overused phrases and jargons. And words have power. So whatever you are using, whether intentionally or unintentionally, has power. My suggestion to you would be, don't fall prey to this bias where clients are putting pressure, or if someone says out of the box thinking, they are cliched or they are using superlative terms to create pressure or create hype. I would suggest these are exactly the cognitive biases that I was talking about that tend to hold us back. What you need to focus on at the beginning till the end of any creative endeavor is whether it's worth doing. If it's worth doing well. So if you are faced with a difficult client and you have to come up with ideas or create some designs, or you're working with business partners who tend to be difficult to work with, but the product that you are developing, the solution that you're working with is worth doing, then all you need to do is learn collaboration. It's a skill, how to work with difficult people. Learn it. And there are some really amazing experts out there. And you'll be surprised how quickly, how easily you can now get along with these people and sort of just cut through the verbose, overused clutter of words and come to the point quickly. I hope I've answered your question reasonably well. Okay, someone raised their hand. I think Saima, you want to say something? I have unmuted you. But I think you're muted from your end. So we'll wait for another minute for questions, if there are any. If there are no questions, it's already been an hour and it's Eid days. So I thank you again for your time. And okay, so there's a question. Okay, this is a good one. Does creativity become an option after your last answer? You see, everything in life is an option for you. You want to be a good guy, you want to be a bad guy, you want to be a successful person, you want to be an unsuccessful person, you want to be polite, you want to be rude. It's all optional. We're born with this freedom. The point I was trying to make when I said creativity is not optional, the point I was trying to make was a little different. The point I was trying to make was that if you are not creative in most of your tasks, there is a cost to it. We might not see that cost, but that cost is there. That's why I gave you that $10 billion train example, right? So no one, if you had heard that example before, great. If you haven't heard of this, imagine what just happened. Someone paid tax $10 billion, right? People, and it was spent on something that wasn't really a good idea. So, situations like these arise all the time. But at the end of the day, it's your choice. Okay, there's another question which says, are you planning other workshops going forward? Yes, I am. And I will be posting them like crazy on social media, on LinkedIn, the way I have been pushing this one. How can we benefit more from your experience? Okay, this is a question from Varun. Well, I plan on continuing to do this, and because Varun has asked this question, this is amazing. I was planning on bringing this up towards the end of the session anyways. I'll bring it up now. This is a time as good as any. Varun has started an amazing initiative called the Superheroes Project. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you probably have seen me posting about it at least once or twice, because I post about it almost every day. Anyone who can create any value for people and who is willing to offer their services at discounted prices or even for free to any businesses who are affected by COVID-19 can do it. That is right now what I am most excited about. I've been approached by some people because of the Superhero Project. They didn't really go through the platform of the Superhero Project. They just contacted me directly. But I guess that's what the spirit is about. If someone is in trouble, you can't really try to discipline them too much. So I did what I could, and I hope it was of some help to them. But those of you who are listening right now, and those of you who will watch this later on, if that is something you're interested in, you should definitely check it out on LinkedIn. I keep posting about it all the time, but you can just go look for the Superheroes Project. I believe that concludes the session for today. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time and patience. It was truly an honor.